Hey, Mo Cadlick here. Week 4 of the NFL season. FootballDiehards.com DFS show. Our Wednesday special show. I am pretending to be Jamie. Not very well. But we've got Jason Brady here. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing pretty good, coming off of a week that was tough for me in cash games, did not quite get there. But yeah, tournaments, it was looking phenomenal for me. In the 1 o'clock games, I absolutely destroyed it. I was like top 100 in this big single entry. I thought, man, I'm gonna have a good day. I'm gonna make a lot of money. And then my 4 o'clock players did not do too good. So it wasn't as good of a day as I wanted it to be. But nonetheless, it was pretty solid, and looking forward to continue it here in week 4.
Well, that sounds exciting. It's unfortunate they're tough. It's tough to get everything. I only had one lineup. I finally put a lineup in. It didn't do that well, but I'm starting to get into it now that I'm kind of catching up with everything. The first few weeks of the season for me is kind of crazy. So where would you like to start?
Yeah, so I say we go position by position, get just talk about some players, and then when it comes Sunday, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to talk about with me and Jamie. Last week was kind of crazy, right, with all the injury news. I think it's going to be kind of like that again, and there's some players that we're going to mention that, may not be plays right now, but depending on some injury news, they may pop up later in the week. So Sunday we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a ton of ownership as well then. But I say we start with quarterback here. And for me, in cash games, it's going to be between two guys this week, and the first one being Josh Allen. And I talked about it with Jamie on the Sunday show prior to the game started. And, you take a look at Josh Allen, right? Like, I was getting kind of worried about him, but you take a look at who he's playing. Pittsburgh has a very good defense. Miami has a very good defense. And then he was going against Washington, who everybody thought, including me, Washington's defense was going to be very good, but that just is not the case. And, Josh Allen is back. He finally played a defense that was not that great, and Josh Allen had about 40 DraftKings points. I did not have as much Allen as I'd like to have, but we went off, and I'm going right back to him here against Houston defense, which is maybe worse than the Washington defense even. So I like Josh Allen here. I guess the only concern is they are 16-point favorites, so maybe they do get out ahead. They start running the ball a ton, but I think they're in a great spot. I love the stacking options we'll talk about a ton. You have, of course, Stephon Diggs, Beasley, even Sanders has been going off. So Josh Allen, I like him up top. Very expensive, but I think he's worth it this week.
Yeah, it's funny. With Sanders, I've got him in a season-long league, and we started him because we kind of had to. And I was trying to find people to pick up and bench his ass, but I couldn't find one. Luckily,
there you go.
Yeah, Houston. They're going to Buffalo at home against Houston. I guess you should worry about them, relaxing in the fourth quarter. But I hate to look that way. I like to be positive.
Yeah, me too. So it's between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts is going to be the other one. I really like Jalen Hurts. Maybe he's not like the best quarterback in terms of you're going out there and trying to win games, right? But he is pretty solid in scoring DraftKings points, scoring 25.4 thus far on average. And what I like about Hurts, especially for cash games, is going to be that cash floor that he brings with his rushing upside. 26 rushing attempts on the year. I like that a ton. He has a great matchup here against Kansas City as well, who Kansas City has actually given up the most DraftKings points thus far to opposing quarterbacks, and I think Hurts is going to take advantage there. And 54-point total in the game they're projected to be trailing. I like Hurts quite a bit. So for me, it's Hurts or Allen. Have not decided yet, but I think they're my two favorite quarterback plays this week.
And by the way, right now, this is Wednesday. Ownership does a lot of shifting as we get through the week into Sunday. He is the number one owned quarterback at essentially 11%. And Hurts is fairly low. He's 3.4% right now. Especially after the Dallas game, what was that, Monday night?
Yep.
But he still had a pretty decent game. I don't remember the exact number, but it was just kind of scary looking as far as, Dallas actually is playing well. It's very hard to understand.
Yeah, Dallas's defense is looking a lot better than I thought. I usually crap on their defense, but they're proving me wrong for sure. But yeah, like you mentioned, Hurts, although it looked like he did horrible, right? Yeah, he still had 25.5 DraftKings points.
Really?
So that's pretty good.
Yeah. That's not bad at all. And so, not surprising people. Well, I don't know if it's not surprising, but 3.4% is relatively low at this point in time.
Yeah, for sure. So the next guy that I don't mind is going to be Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford and the Rams have been looking phenomenal. Of course, you have great stacking options, Cooper Kupp being one of them that we'll talk about, who I think was like the highest owned last week. I wouldn't be shocked if Cooper Kupp, who is, again, one of the highest owned this week as well, he's been looking phenomenal. Robert Woods, a solid stacking option as well. And yeah, I like Stafford here against Arizona, which is the 55-point game total, which is the highest on the slate. And yeah, don't mind some Stafford stacks with Kupp and Woods this week. Even like Higbee is a fine option as well. So yeah, give me Stafford here. We're curious what the ownership on him is going to be.
He's the third most owned quarterback, not little over 9%. So he's up there. He's up there, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, you get. I mean, obviously Josh Allen's fantastic, but $7,000 is a little lower than your top two quarterbacks. So I can see why people are going to him. Because things are looking good for him. Very consistent for the first 3 weeks, too.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he can keep it up, and if Kupp can keep up this phenomenal year he's having. He's been phenomenal. But the next guy I do want to talk about is a little bit cheaper, and this one's a weird one, right? Sam Darnold going against Dallas, 50.5-point total, where the Panthers are 4-point dogs. So Darnold's actually been doing solid this year, averaging 23.7 DraftKings points, and of course Christian McCaffrey is going to be out, so I expect them to focus more on passing the ball. I love the Darnold Moore stack this week. More somebody else will talk about, but yeah, 6,000, very cheap going against Dallas in what should be a very high-scoring game. Like we were talking about earlier, I think Dallas's defense is a lot better than I expected it to be, but they're still not like a phenomenal defense. They're better than I thought, but they're still not like phenomenal. I think Darnold could have success here, especially at that price tag.
4.5% owned Sam Darnold. What I expect, but may not happen this year, is Dallas having somewhat of a letdown after playing a Monday night game and beating a conference team. There could be a slight letdown, and I'm not saying they win or they would lose per se, but that may give Sam Darnold some opportunities if they're a little sloppy. But maybe they're not going to be that way. But that 4.5 is a decent low ownership, I would say.
Yeah, and this surprises me. So although Dallas's defense hasn't been bad, they've still given up the second most points to opposing quarterbacks.
Well, look at the game Monday night. Weird things happened at the beginning. You know, they fumbled in the end zone. They gave them a touchdown. They didn't score at the goal line. But then they got way ahead. When you're way ahead, what happens? You're
exactly,
not going to, you're going to, you know, you may let a touchdown, let a touchdown go, but you're not killing yourself. And you get some garbage fantasy points at that point. And that kind of happened with Hurts, I think. I wasn't paying that much attention to the game, but so you can get some change in stats when you're way ahead like that.
Yeah, for sure. And they got dominated week 1 by Tom Brady as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, for like quarterback, that's about it for me. Like Josh Allen is going to be my go-to this week, and Jalen Hurts as well. I think those two is where I'm going to have my most focus. Patrick Mahomes is up there, but yeah, I like Josh Allen and Hurts the most. Any quarterback sticking out for you?
Well, what's interesting, and I already talked about it a little before, is how these ownerships right now on Wednesday, Lamar Jackson is 3.1% owned. Going in Denver, they're going to Denver, but I don't know. I mean, I think that number is going to go way up. I don't know if the what is he 7,500? Do you expect him to be a lower owned quarterback this week going into Denver?
I don't think he'll be like crazy low owned, but I think he'll be lower owned than Mahomes and Allen this week, which does make him pretty intriguing. I was high on him last week, and he didn't do terrible. He had 20.28 DraftKings points. I mean, he looked terrible. He only passed the ball 51.6 completion percentage, was 16 for 31. So that's horrible, but he still scores some decent DraftKings points, 58 rushing yards. So, yeah, maybe Jackson could be an interesting option to pivot to if he's going to be this low owned because he has that rushing yard upside, right?
Well, we'll watch that on Sunday morning. I expect it to go up, but yeah, you're right. If he's low, he seems to always find a way to score fantasy points. Now, Denver has looked good against average and below average opponents. So, and Baltimore had a lot of injuries and situations last week in week 3, so perhaps those will be corrected. But, yeah, we'll have to take a look at that on Sunday morning and see how high that 3.1% ownership is for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good call. Anything else sticking out to you in terms of quarterbacks?
Not yet. That's the one that really stuck out to me at quarterback was Lamar Jackson.
All right, yeah, I think that's about it. I think it's pretty straightforward for running back, so we can move on, or for quarterback, so we should move on to running back. And it's a weird week because I like so many of these plays up top in terms of their positions. Like Josh Allen up top, I like him. We'll talk about some expensive wide receivers I like and expensive tight end I like as well. And I like Derrick Henry, who is very expensive, $8,800, but it seems like he should be even more expensive. I mean, this is a guy that he's averaging 27.9 DraftKings points going against the Jets, 45-point total, where the Titans are 7.5-point favorites. And what I typically look for in Derrick Henry games is going to be a game where they are favored in, because I don't like how, this year they're passing him the ball, but in past years they don't really pass him the ball, and when they do fall behind, he's not too much involved. But this year he actually has 12 receptions, which is a ton if you know Derrick Henry. That's a lot, and that's something I like. And he's actually averaging 31 total touches per game this year. They're going to give him the ball. They have some wide receivers that are beat up for Tennessee as well. I think they're going to put a focus on giving Henry the ball, and this is a game where they absolutely should, and he should absolutely smash. So, yeah, give me Derrick Henry here. Hopefully his ownership's not too crazy, but I have a weird feeling he's one of the highest owned.
22.2, the highest owned running back here on Wednesday. So, yep, he's chalky, baby. But how do you get away from this guy? How do you get away from this guy? All the stuff you just said, how do you get away from this guy? Can you?
It's hard. It's hard. It's so hard this week.
Yeah, I mean, with some injury at receiver, I mean, and the Jets, unless the Jets somehow, have a running defense, it is at the Jets, but then again, yeah, that's a tough one to get away from.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be so high on Derrick Henry this week. So hopefully he has another big game like he did a couple weeks ago when he had like that 50-point game.
Now, would you? I'm saying something semi-stupid, but not necessarily. Would you put him in your GPP at all at some percentage?
Yep. So cash for him is going to be a lock. I'm putting him right in. There's no debate. But yeah, tournaments, even though he is projected to be 22% ownership, I feel like you can go overweight to that and be overexposed and still get a little bit different. But I think he's one of these plays where you kind of have to eat that chalk. I think he's going to be a good play. But yeah, I mean, he is going to be high owned. We have seen him bust before. It's just like you said, it's so hard to get away. Just everything seems to be lining up for Henry this week.
Okay.
So moving on down, we have Alvin Kamara, who is $400 savings, and to be honest, I'd rather much go up and get Derrick Henry, but I think he's still in a solid matchup where they are favored. Solid matchup against the Giants run defense, who does rank 31st versus opposing running backs this year. Also some pass catching upside for Kamara. So, maybe depending on the ownership, if you do want to get different, depending on the ownership of Kamara, maybe go Kamara over Henry. I'm not personally doing that, but what's the ownership on Kamara there?
Kamara's number 2, 15.9, 16%. So he's second, obviously fairly significantly below Henry.
Okay, then if they're both that high on, I might as well just go up and get Henry, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, but he's fine as well.
You're saving 400 if you go with Kamara, but good point.
Yeah. Regardless, I think they're both pretty solid plays, but yeah, my preferred play is going to be Henry. Going down, Najee Harris for Pittsburgh going against Green Bay. Harris is 6,800. He's somebody that I've been on, it seems like pretty much every single week thus far this year, and I think we're going to be on him here again, averaging 18.7 points per week, and this is really weird. He had 19 targets last week. 19 targets is crazy in general, and then 19 targets for a running back. That's unheard of, right? 27 targets this year.
That sounds like Barkley in his rookie season.
Yeah,
the Giants.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they're feeding the ball, and especially in the passing game, right? 27 targets on the year, averaging nine targets each week. So if you're going to give me that many targets at 6,800, I like that quite a bit. The problem is, my goodness, does Pittsburgh look awful? Does their offense look awful? Does Big Ben look awful? That's the only problem. But they're giving him the ball.
He's a running back. You got the short throws there. Deontay Johnson is still, he could easily come back this week. I forget the exact number. I was just looking at it, and I'm too old to remember. But if Deontay Johnson comes back, you would expect some of those to pull back a little bit. But still, those targets are so high. And like I said, he's improving. He's getting better as a rookie. You're playing a Green Bay, and they may have a letdown too. They were in San Francisco with that insane game Sunday night.
Oh yeah.
But you got to lean on Najee Harris if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, even if Deontay Johnson's back and those short passing. He's 10% owned, or 9.5% owned. So he's like the 7th highest running back, whatever that means to you.
Yeah, that's not terrible. And, like you said, they are leaning on him a lot in the passing game, but I wouldn't mind, letting him run the ball more. 14 attempts in week 3, only 10 in week 2. Big Ben has not been looking good. I just feed Harris the ball more. I think that would really help their offense. But then again, he's only averaging 2.9 yards per carry in week 3, 2.8 in week 1. So I guess he's not being too efficient when running the ball, but he's being really efficient catching it.
Nothing wrong with that. I think you got to go with it.
Yep, so we'll move on to the next play here. We have Chuba Hubbard going against Dallas here, 50.5-point total, where Carolina is 4-point underdogs. And yeah, he's 5,900, averaging 4.8 DraftKings points. But of course, Christian McCaffrey is going to be out, so Hubbard's going to be the number 1 guy on the Panthers. And I believe when McCaffrey went out, I think he played like 75% of the snaps after that, and then Freeman played around like 15 to 20% of the snaps after that. So Hubbard is going to be the main guy as far as I'm concerned. In this game, going against Dallas, who, like I said, their defense isn't great, but it's not horrible. It's kind of like the middle of the road there. And I think Chubbard's going to be heavily involved in the passing game as well. And you're not getting McCaffrey. He's not anywhere near close to McCaffrey, but he is going to be a lot cheaper than a McCaffrey would be. And I think he's going to be involved in this game quite a bit. So yeah, I like Hubbard quite a bit. 5,900 going against Dallas, high scoring game, a game they're going to be trailing, and I think he should be getting a decent amount of receptions as well.
8.5% owned, and last game he had 5 targets, 3 catches, 27 yards. Not huge, but he doesn't have to add a little bit more to that, and it becomes just a little more frosting on the cake for him. You would think they'd try and get him the ball. So,
yep.
8.5%.
Yep, don't hate it.
Go ahead.
Yep, not horrible. I kind of expected it to be a little bit higher, but that's good. So this is a one where we have to kind of monitor the injury news. So we'll talk about this one more Sunday. But if Darrell Henderson is out, I have some serious interest in Sony Michel going against Arizona in that game where it is a 55 total, which is the highest on the slate. And Sony Michel, they gave him 20 rushing attempts last week. Also had 3 receptions, I think, on 4 targets. So they were using him for sure. It's just they were going against Tampa Bay, which has one of the best, if not the best, run defense in the NFL. So a lot better, much better running defense than Arizona does. So, yeah, I like Sony Michel here, 5,200 if Henderson is out. If Henderson plays, I do like Henderson, but looking for the injury news there. Any updates on Henderson that you know of?
He is right now uncertain, so we don't know. And right now, Sony Michel is 7.7% owned. And actually, Henderson's the 4th most at 10.6. But obviously, as soon as we get any news as it progresses through the week, that'll of course fluctuate extremely. What is that? That's an afternoon game on Sunday. Oh, yikes! I hate that. But we may know by then. We may know by Sunday morning. But it's a Sunday afternoon. So if we get stuck with uncertain going into 1 o'clock, that's. Unless you got a player you can switch out if you want to put one of those guys in.
Yeah, Jamie talked about that last week, where the Cook Madison situation, I believe, where if you have somebody similar in price to have ready, it'll work out that way. But yeah, don't like that it's a later game. But hopefully,
the one thing I did right last week, I started Madison on a whim. I wasn't spending a lot of money, my $1 or $2 or $3 or $4, but he did turn out. He looked good. I really liked what Madison looked like in the game. He seems quick. Strong, he's really doing well. They won the game without Cook, so that was kind of nice.
By the way, if Cook is out, Madison's going to be a phenomenal play once again this week. But no update on Cook, right? Limited in practice.
Let's take a look here. We just got some notes. Optimistic. The outlook is optimistic for Cook.
All right.
And right now, Cook is the 5th most owned running back at 10.2%.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to monitor that for Sunday there.
I don't like going against Cleveland, though.
Yeah, I don't like that either at all.
But, can't have everything.
Yeah. The last guy I do want to touch on is going to be David Montgomery going against Detroit here. So the Bears looked horrendous. I forget the total yards. It was up on the screen. It was I think 45 total yards for the whole Bears offense, and the Browns was 400 and something. It was a pitiful performance. The Bears O-line looked horrible. Fields looked horrible, but that was against the Browns defense. They are now going against the Lions defense, so I think they're going to have a lot more success here. And they are actually favored by 2.5 points. So Montgomery, when you take a look at him, they're feeding him the ball. He had around 20-plus touches in week 1, had 17 touches in week 2. If you give me 20-plus touches around there against this Detroit defense, I'm going to be very, very happy. On top of that, he is very cheap as well. So I think it's a good bounce-back spot for the Bears in general, but as far as David Montgomery as well, I think he's in a good spot at that price tag. It's a much better matchup than it was last week.
Yeah, it's good to look forward, not backward on that situation, and I bet his ownership's going to be bad. I was just going to let you they only ran the ball. The Bears only ran the ball 13 times, 10 for Montgomery and 3 for Fields. But Montgomery did get 4 targets, but he is right now at 2.5% owned, so people do not have faith in him. But I think you've got a good point, and these are the situations you got to look at. Don't look backwards, look forwards, because he could be a good play this week, especially if that percentage of owned stays low as we progress through the week.
I think so, especially at the ownership rate. I think it's people are down on him and the Bears, and maybe they should be, but again, it's going to be a completely different matchup against this Detroit defense, who is not good at all.
Yeah, hopefully they can. That will make a difference. Definitely a big difference between Detroit's defense and Cleveland's defense.
And then one more I'll kind of throw out: Antonio Gibson for Washington, 6,100 going against Atlanta. Love the matchup. They are using McKissick, but Gibson is still getting the majority of the carries and whatnot. 12 attempts in week 3, 2 targets, 1 reception, 13 total touches in week 3. And then in week 2, he had 15 total touches. In week 1, he had 23 total touches. So they're giving him the ball. Great match against Atlanta. Would like if they used him even more, but, I think it's solid.
They only threw to him twice against the Bills, but one of them was for 73 yards. So,
yep.
And a touchdown. The third most owned running back, Antonio Gibson. So I think people are looking for that momentum of that big game against Buffalo and the fact they're in Atlanta. So he's going to be owned. It looks like the man's going to be owned.
Yep, must be a price thing. He's way too cheap, especially against Atlanta.
It's not a bad number, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else stick out to you in terms of running backs?
There's a whole bunch of weird stuff. I'm just going to throw these out at you real quick. Can Denver run at home against Baltimore? I mean, Denver hasn't really played some great teams, but you may be able to get some cheap or low-owned running backs. So that's the question. What do you think? Can Denver run against Baltimore at home?
Yeah, I think they could. Baltimore is ranked 26 against the rush so far in terms of points given up. Melvin Gordon is questionable. He's probably playing, right?
Well, we don't know yet, but let me go quickly look here. He is optimistic, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, if he plays, still have some interest in Williams. Williams has been looking really good, averaging 9.2 DraftKings points, had 14.2 DraftKings points last week. But especially if Melvin Gordon was to be out, I think Williams would be in a smash spot there. But even then, I think Williams is solid. Wouldn't hate for him to eventually take over the backfield as well. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from him.
Yeah, hopefully that'll happen. Now, a couple more guys here, just quickly. Swift for Detroit. I know it's at Chicago, but we've got him ranked in the top 7 running backs, our algorithm, and I'm scratching my head trying to figure out. I've got to go back and look at that. But right now, he's not even in the system as far as ownership's concerned, and sometimes Wednesday is very early. But that's probably a sign that a lot of people are going away from him. Do you know what Swift's dollar figure is? I don't have it in front of me.
6,200.
It's kind of high, but then again, he's had production. So But he's a curious guy. Jonathan Taylor, I wrote him down for some crazy reason. 6,300, he's at 7.5. He's going at Miami. He's just another guy I thought would be an interesting thing. Mike Davis, who I don't like at all. I don't know why. He's about the 8th most owned. He's just below Naheem Hines at $5,100 against Washington, who has been having troubles at defense. And that's going to be in Atlanta. Something to think about over the next couple of days.
No, I get it. Like, Washington's defense has looked pitiful. So, yeah, don't hate that.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I got. I kind of had a lot of things at running back that I need to mull over the next few days.
Yeah, sounds good. So I say we move on to wide receiver here, and we will start with Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I mean, Cooper Kupp's been looking phenomenal, right? So they did price him up to $7,800, which is interesting, but I think it is warranted. He has looked unreal. 32.4 DraftKings points on average, and he's in another great matchup here against Arizona with a high total, highest on the slate. Stafford just keeps getting him the ball, averaging 11 targets this year and has 5 touchdowns to go with it. So, Cooper Kupp, I'm really curious to hear the ownership on this one because he was, I think, the highest owned last week, and they did price him up 1,000. So I'm curious to see if that ownership had moved at all.
Still number one, 21.6%. It's Wednesday, but yeah, 7,800. So he's only $200 below Tyreek Hill, who hasn't really produced a lot lately. But Kansas City's going to be at Philadelphia. You may be talking about here. But yeah, he's still there. We'll see if I don't see that changing as we progress to Sunday. But obviously the ownership's on the side. It's real time, so it changes. So we'll be watching that.
Yeah, Robert Woods is going to be 5,300, so 1,000 cheaper. Do you know Robert Woods' ownership? Is it high as well?
9.3%, much lower, but he's still like the top 8.
Yeah, I like him as well, especially at that price tag.
He'd be tempting. I'd have to go back and look at the box scores. Can Cooper really keep that up? Can Cooper Kupp?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because Woods would be an attractive. You know how things change. Woods, even though he's 9.3% owned, $5,300 is a huge savings right there. If you could get enough out of him. Some people are obviously looking that way early on here this week because he's already, he's relatively high up there.
Yeah, it's not like Woods is playing horrible. He's doing good. He's doing pretty good. It's just he hasn't had that big game yet, like Cooper Kupp's doing every week.
Yep.
So, like I said, Cooper Kupp is expensive, which makes it interesting because I have a ton of interest in Devonta Adams, and if you would have told me earlier in the year that Cooper Kupp is only $100 cheaper than Devonta Adams, I probably would have called you crazy. But here we are, Devonta Adams 7,900, and he's averaging 22.6 DraftKings points per week. Had a massive 18 targets last week, which was one less than Harris, and he has always a ton of upside each and every week going against Pittsburgh. But as we know, Devonta Adams is matchup proof, and it's just crazy. Like thinking like Devonta Adams is only $100 more expensive than Cooper Kupp. Depending on the ownership, first of all, I like both, but depending on the ownership, would sway me one way or another here.
Well, Adams is 19.5. He's just below Kupp and Hill. He's fairly high on here on Wednesday. So, now another thing to think about. I don't know if it affects Adams as much, but Watt for Pittsburgh has been out, and I think he could make a big difference in the game and perhaps even in the effect of the offense of Green Bay and the ability to have fantasy points. So I think that's something to think about. I don't know his status right now, but if he comes back and plays, that's something to consider on your decision on people like Devonta Adams.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point there. Defense does not look the same with Watt out. Good point. All right. So moving down, Calvin Ridley is somebody that I seem to talk about every week, and he's doing good. I think he had like 19 DraftKings points last week. He's averaging 14.5 on the year, and I will be going back to him here once again, going against Washington, who just got absolutely destroyed, to say the least, last week. And in this game, it is a 47-point total where Atlanta is 1.5-point underdogs. And Washington's given up the third most DraftKings points thus far to opposing wide receivers. I think Calvin Ridley is in a phenomenal spot. He hasn't had that big game yet. His best game is like 19 DraftKings points, but I think this could be a spot where he could absolutely smash. And 7,000 seems way too cheap for Calvin Ridley. I think he started out the year like 7,800 around there, 8,000 around there. He's now sitting at 7K, and I think people have forgot about him a little bit.
Well, he's not scoring the touchdowns, and if you go look at even though he had 11 targets, Ridley had the most targets of any Falcon. And he got 8 catches for 61 yards, so normal scoring, that's about 14.1. But they threw to that Alamed Z and Lee Smith, the tight end, catches these touchdowns. I haven't looked at the target data. We have goal line target data. I'm not sure if Ridley's being targeted. I'm a little worried that he's having trouble scoring because they're not looking at him as much inside the 10-yard line or the 20-yard line. He's more between the 20s. I hope that's wrong. Because I think he just needs to start scoring a little bit to really put the frosting on the cake.
Yep, 100% agree. I think he has 1 touchdown on the year, which is not enough.
It's not enough.
Not enough for him.
We want more.
We do, especially considering I have him in season long as well. So I do want more.
I'm probably bitching because of my season long because I did draft him a handful of times in the second.
Yep, the same. But we'll move on to the next one. Okay. We have DJ Moore going against Dallas, and talked a little bit about Darnold as well. But I think Moore's in a solid spot here. No McCaffrey, which should help in terms of the target share. If we're used to McCaffrey getting around 10 targets, now I think a lot of those are going to go to Moore, who's already averaging 10 targets per week. Solid matchup against this Cowboys defense. And, I think they're going to be trailing. They're projected to be trailing as well. Projected to be trailing by 4 points. And he's very cheap, 6,600. And he's having a really good year, averaging 20.3 DraftKings points. It seemed like last year it was like him and Robbie Anderson trading back and forth big games. But it seems like this year it's just been DJ Moore and DJ Moore only. Anderson hasn't really done much this year. But, Moore's the guy. I like him this week. I like the price tag. I like the matchup.
He was 12 targets last week, most of the team, 8 catches, 126 yards. Didn't score, but hey, we're not going to worry about that. What in the heck is going on with Robbie Anderson? I mean, 2 targets, 1 catch. I got to talk to Bob. We need to analyze that over the week here. This is just a great spot for Moore. And if his ownership, let's go look at his ownership. Well, actually, his ownership is 4th, 15.8. He's going to own. He's going to be owned. This is too good of a situation. He's playing too well. With McCaffrey out. And, also what's interesting is that character Marshall, Terrace Marshall, the rookie, he had 5 targets, 4 catches. I don't know what his salary is, whether he's a consideration right now. But if Robbie Anderson isn't doing anything, then, you've got Robbie Anderson right now is 6.3% owned. And I don't even see Marshall isn't in here yet, but the statistics sometimes on Wednesday don't show everything. But that's great. It's a great opportunity. For
Moore, and I'm a fan of Marshall as well. He's 4,000 on DK, so very cheap.
That's cheap. That's tempting. Let's hope Dallas has a letdown from that huge Philadelphia Monday night game.
Yeah, I hope so. I'll be very invested in the Carolina side.
Cool.
All right, so moving on, and this is going to be kind of a nice run-back option for my Buffalo Bill stacks, which I really do like. But Brandon Cooks, it seems like he's one of the very few players on Houston that are performing well, and he's doing really good, averaging 22.6 DraftKings points, and they are huge underdogs. I believe the Houston Texans are the biggest underdogs so far this year, 16-point underdogs. So you got to expect they're going to be trailing. They're going to be passing the ball, and Cooks has been that guy. He's averaging about 10 targets per game, and again, I think they're going to use him a lot. So Cooks, somebody I like quite a bit. 6,400, I like him in my run back with my Bill stacks.
Yeah, in preseason, Bob Harris he picked Brandon Cooks a lot in drafts, and he just said the
Nice.
same thing. He's the only guy there. He may not be a great quarter player, but he's done well. And even the rookies getting him the ball. Not 3% owned right now. Very low owned against Buffalo at Buffalo. So good opportunity right there.
Yep, Cooks is like the only person on the Texans I'd probably use.
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Exactly.
Buffalo.
Yeah, we'll move on. So I think Diggs is in play. 100%. I think Diggs is in play. I think Emmanuel Sanders 4900 is in play. But the guy I really like, and this is more so for cash games, I think is very safe. It's going to be Colt Beasley, 47 total, where Buffalo Bills are 16-point favorites, and he's 500 more than Sanders, but I think he's a lot safer. Maybe he doesn't have the highest upside compared to a Sanders, compared to a Diggs, but he's averaging 10 targets per 3 games, and he is sitting at 5,400, and you're telling me he's getting on average 10 targets. Like, that's crazy for the price point. And yes, he doesn't have that ceiling like a Diggs, like a Sanders, but I just think he's safe for cash. If you can give me 10 targets at 5,400, I'll be more than happy. But this whole Buffalo Bills wide receivers in general, Diggs, Sanders, and Beasley, I'm very high on them all 3 this week.
And interesting, Sanders has scored the 2 touchdowns, had 6 targets, 5 catches, 94 yards, and got the touchdowns. Despite that, of course, it was a big game. I realized they just laid him down. They scored 43 points. But Beasley did get 13 targets in that game, 11 catches, 98 yards. So even though he didn't score, PPR-wise, he's over 20 fantasy points. Kind of hard to complain without a touchdown.
Yep.
So his floor is high.
100%.
Sanders could go back and catch 3 balls and 50 yards and not get a touchdown, and his floor would be a little lower. But Sanders did impress yesterday or this weekend.
Oh, big time. But yeah, I'm really high on the Bills this week. I think they're in a good spot.
Cool.
Okay, so moving on. Yeah, I think Jamie brought this up last week, and then it's Odell Beckham Jr. going against Minnesota. Got a 51.5-point total, where Cleveland is 2-point favorites, and he's still very cheap, 5,800. I think he might have got priced up a little bit from last week, but came back, had 9 targets. I thought Odell looked really good. He looked fresh, he looked healthy, and Minnesota has given up the 4th most DraftKings points to opposing wide receivers thus far. So, yeah, I think Odell's in a solid spot. He's really, really cheap still. I think I might go back to him here. They were using him last game. I think it continues.
Well, I think Landry's still out. I don't have the,
I think so, yeah.
100%. But if Landry is out, Beckham comes back and gets the most targets of the team, 9, 5 catches, 77 yards. Akeem Hunt had, 7 targets and 6 catches, which he does often. Let's see where ODB is at. I didn't pull that up too quickly. He's at 6% owned. A little bit down the list, but an attractive game for sure.
Yep, don't hate that call. Shout out to Jamie, called it out last week. He did pretty solid. I think they had 13.7. Not terrible.
Yeah, that's not
and
bad.
Then, oh yeah. So yeah, this is for value in terms of wide receivers. I think I might get a lot of my value at running back. Hoping maybe if Henderson's out, I'll probably go to Michelle. Hubbard, somebody else that's cheap at running back, but it's so hard to get value at wide receiver. But the one guy that did stick out in terms of value is going to be Jalen Waddle, 42.5-point total going against the Colts. He's 4,900, and he had 13 targets last week. He had 8 targets week 2. He looks to be the number 1 option on this Miami offense. Colts defense doesn't scare me too much. So yeah, Waddle 4,900 in terms of value. Like that's about all I see is Waddle down there.
Yeah, he's a very impressive rookie. I always worry about rookies, but they're just going to him. He's not showing yet on the ownership here on Wednesday. I expect he'll show up. He definitely will show up, but at this point he's not showing up. And the quarterback got him the ball. The Brisket or whatever his name is.
Yep.
He looked better than I thought he would with a week of preparation when he had to come in last week. So, that definitely is a positive factor there for Waddle.
Yep, for sure. So I touched on Robert Woods. I touched on Emmanuel Sanders. I think they're all in play. Stephon Diggs as well. But something that really does stick out to me in terms of a very interesting play is going to be Brandon Iuke. So, I'm always very high on Brandon Iuke, but he had the weird situation in Week 1 where he had 0 targets and he had 0 receptions. He put up a 0, right? And then in Week 2. Only 2 targets, 1 reception. I don't know if he was – I think they said he was battling injuries or something like that, but he came back last week against Green Bay, had 14.5 DraftKings points, 6 targets, 4 receptions. If Brandon Iuke is back, I think this could be a very interesting – I don't think anybody's going to play him. I think it's going to be a very interesting, sneaky spot because, again, like last year, Brandon Iuke was phenomenal, but he just had those weird Week 1 and Week 2 where he just didn't do anything. And maybe it was an injury, I don't know. But if he is back, I think he's in a solid spot, a really solid spot here against Seattle.
Well, he did progress in Week 3, got 6 targets and 4 catches. He did score a touchdown, 37 yards. Kittle got 9 targets. Debo Samuel got 10 targets. But he's progressing up there. And right now, again, it's Wednesday. He's not owned. The ownership numbers have not come in on him yet, so we'll see what that comes out to. Debo Samuel right now is about the 9th owned at 8.3%. So we'll see where he comes out here as we progress. And I guess it's in San Francisco. Boy, Seattle, I'm expecting those guys to come out on fire because they're in desperate trouble and they're being, have to go on the road against San Francisco. But we'll see what they can do.
Yep, for sure. Anything else sticking out to you in terms of wide receivers?
Yeah, here's a quirky one. A.J. Brown right now is questionable or whatever the number is. If A.J. Brown doesn't play, Chester Rogers at 3,300 is an interesting play for Tennessee at the Jets. He's 5.3% owned. He's not ultra low. He's in the middle there. So people are looking at this guy, and, of course, we'll progress this week and see where A.J. Brown is. I was just looking at him, and I already forgot. A.J. Brown right now is uncertain with a hamstring, which is hamstrings are fickle, and uncertain is a horrible thing. But we'll know that as we progress here. Is that a morning game or not?
So, yeah, it's morning game. 1 o'clock.
Okay, so we're going to know. You're going to know well in advance if A.J. Brown's going to play. But then again, a hamstring – you can play and not be 100% and not actually be very productive. So people are already showing some interest in Chester Rogers for Tennessee. $3,300.
Yep. Thank you
for score 10 points to make that work.
Yeah, I'd be happy with 10 points there, 100%.
Yeah. So that's
thank you for providing some
Deshaun Jackson, who's only getting like 33% of the snaps, goes nuts. And right now he's owned at 4.7%. Just FYI.
Deshaun, yeah, he had a big game, right? 24 DraftKings points.
He looked fast. What scares me is, when he played for Philly, he played like Week 1 and then didn't get back on the field. I think they're thinking, if they can just get this guy in situational play and keep him healthy, it's just that little, like I say, the frosting on the cake. He got a long touchdown finally. They missed him a couple times. I mean, I can't believe this guy looks that fast at the age that he is. It was really phenomenal. How you play him in DFS right now, I don't know. We'll see how it progresses this week.
Yeah, Jackson always seems to be like one of those boomer bust guys. Either he scores like 0 or he scores like 30 points every time.
He's a GPP guy. Yeah? So that's it I have on receivers. Those are the quirky ones that I found on receiving.
Okay, yeah, I'm writing down your option. I do like both of those actually for some value. I couldn't find any value, but yeah, those do sound pretty good. I'm
glad.
So that's all wide receiver. Thank you. So we'll move to tight end. And this week for tight end, it's tough because for me, I just see myself going up and playing Kelsey this week for the most part. And it was funny. Last week, I actually ended up going with Kelsey in single entry instead of Hawkinson, which it worked out, right? But I was still kind of disappointed with Kelsey because he scored 20 DraftKings points. That's how good he is. I was disappointed that he had 20 points. Like that's a floor game for Kelsey. That I think he could do much better.
A floor, 20 fantasy points is a floor.
That's his floor right there. I was expecting a lot. I think he had like 107 yards, got the bonus, but no touchdowns. I do expect him to hopefully have a higher scoring than 20 DraftKings points, which again I wasn't all too impressed about. But Kelsey's somebody that he has the highest ceiling on the slate in terms of tight end, and there's nobody even close to him there. 8,100 is expensive, but I just see myself going up and getting him a lot this week.
He is so more expensive than everybody else.
Yeah, a ton. Yeah. Yeah,
he's,
and I'm guessing it's really
7% owned, we start all over. 12.6% owned, the number one owned tight end. Not much above Kittle, but he's above Kittle.
Yeah, so it's Kelsey for me this week. Kittle, we could talk about him a little bit. It's weird, right? He only has 18 targets this year, and that seems low for Kittle.
The whole thing in San Francisco is weird. It worries me a little bit. But, it worries me. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, I mean, so Kittle, it's a big savings. That's like $2,200 savings off of Kelsey. But I think I'd rather go up and get Kelsey, to be honest. But yeah, Kittle's good, but I wish they would give him the ball more.
Definitely, he needs to get the ball more too.
And then other than that, Higbee's fine. This was one that you threw out last week, I believe. Evan Ingram. And he didn't do great. He had 3.1 DraftKings points, but he did have 6 targets, right? And the New York Giants, all 3 of their wide receiver cores beat up. Maybe 1 or 2 don't even play. And if that happens, I like Ingram even more. He's $3K. He's very cheap. You don't need much. 6 targets last week. If they are missing some receivers this week, maybe that does go up.
Yeah, 6 targets, only caught 2 of them, but you're right. $3,000. He's a tempting guy to consider in some of your lineups.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's like nobody's going to play him as well, which is even cooler.
Well, 3.8 is not bad. I was kind of hoping he'd be lower, but this is Wednesday. We'll see how things progress. But still, that's a pretty low number, 3.8.
Oh yeah. Anything else stick out to you in terms of in terms of tight ends?
Well, Ingram was you stole him from me.
Oops.
But, what's weird about Dallas? This Dalton Schultz had a huge game. It's so frustrating though because they're kind of stealing from each other. Him and Jarwin. I'm not sure what to Jarwin. I'm not sure what to do about that. He looked good? I'll tell you what. I mean, he meaning Schultz. But Jarwin's going to steal stuff. But maybe that's just the way it is.
Yeah, Schultz is like really cheap as well, 3,400, so only 400 higher than Ingram. So those are some cheap options there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's kind of it for right now.
Yeah, Sam. I mean, for me, it's mostly Kelsey or Schultz is good, and then Ingram down low. Other than that, just not much really sticks out. Don't want to go back to Hawkinson. I think he's okay. Kyle Pitts. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. They were in the perfect spot, and you literally only got 2 targets. Like, they completely forgot about him out of nowhere.
Maybe he cut his hair and he lost all his strength.
Something weird happened. I don't know.
This Caleb Raymond got 10 targets and caught 6 of them.
Yeah.
But, talking about Swift, DeAndre Swift, he had 7 targets as a running back, 7 catches. They didn't run a whole lot. He did get a touchdown, so he's kind of an interesting guy. Even though they're running 2 backs, they're still being productive.
Yep, that is very true. But that's about it for me for tight end. We can touch on defense quickly. I'll kind of give you my 3 favorites that stick out so far. We'll touch more on defense later in the week.
The same one. Go ahead.
All right, we'll see. So in terms of punting down, if you guys know me, you guys know that I do like punting down at defense to go up and get better positions elsewhere. I like the Lions defense, 2,200. That's my favorite. They're going against Chicago. It looks like, just taking a look at the radar, like midweek, it looks like it's going to be a lot of rain, very crappy game there. 42-point total, which is the lowest. So I like the Lions defense. And then also the Jets defense against Tennessee. Their wide receivers are both beat up. I don't hate them at 2,000 minimum. Give me something there. And then the Bills defense, if I had to pay up at 4,300 against Houston. And those are my 3 that I'm sticking out so far.
So well, wouldn't you know, Detroit's at 14% owned. They're the highest owned defense. Surprise, surprise. $2,200. And who knows what they're going to do at quarterback. Because they're talking about they're not sure who they're going to start. And Fields is a great talent, but he's not ready right now, in my opinion. Now he's going to go against Detroit, so maybe he'll have a little easier time. What did he get sacked? 9 sacks.
A ton.
The most a rookie's ever been sacked. So that was an ugly game. He's got, they've got to get better at quarterback, and I don't know how quick Fields will get better. But yeah, Detroit seems like a good one there. And you said Buffalo also?
Yeah, if I was to pay up
Houston,
Buffalo,
4,300, that's pretty high, but that's expected. Yeah, that was the one those are the ones I thought Detroit, even though it's chalky, but that's a tempting one.
Yeah, so for sure. I think it's pretty.
Defenses.
Yes, I think Lions for me is going to be the way to go. We'll see what happens. Bears just looked horrible last week. I expected them to bounce back, but my goodness, that was bad.
Oof, it hurt.
Yeah.
But they're at home against Detroit.
Yeah, can't look any worse than last week.
All right, sounds good.
All right, but that's about it. Anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think we got them. We had some really interesting stuff. And nope, that is it for me. We'll see whether Watt plays for Pittsburgh. I think that's going to be a fun one, along many of the other things that we talked about that we don't know yet. We will know as we approach Sunday morning.
Yep, Sunday, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure we're going to find out a lot of things. So yeah, stay tuned. And
we'll have Jamie back. He won't have me.
Yes.
I'll be sitting there tired and exhausted trying to get my lineups in. All right, great show. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you Sunday morning.
Sounds good. Good luck.